Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Laundry List. I'm your host, Todd. I got Blake here. Happy Thursday to you. We're coming at you at Thursday from the studio, and we're having a heck of a week. It's been interesting. Lots to talk about today. We had some people ask questions, so we'll get to a couple of the questions. One of the questions is, how do I stop being so negative to myself?
Good one.
Because every time I start to have a little success and happiness in my life, I turn it into a negative. So that was one of the questions that we can get to, because
for sure.
I think you and I have some experience with that, and we can talk about that. We'll get into it. Why don't we hit the laundry list?
Yep.
And then the promises.
All right. So this is the laundry list. This is what we had. 1, we became isolated and afraid of people and authority figures. 2, we became approval seekers and lost our identity in the process. 3, we were frightened by angry people and any personal criticism. 4, we either became alcoholics, marry them, or both, or find another compulsive personality, such as a workaholic, to fulfill our sick abandonment needs. 5, we live life from the viewpoint of victims and are attracted by that weakness in our love and friendship relationships. 6, we have an overdeveloped sense of responsibility, and it is easier for us to be concerned with others rather than ourselves. This enables us not to look too closely at our own faults, etc. 7, we get guilt feelings when we stand up for ourselves instead of giving in to others. 8, we became addicted to excitement. 9, we confuse love and pity and tend to love people we can pity and rescue. 10, we have stuffed our feelings from our traumatic childhoods and have lost the ability to feel or express our feelings because it hurts so much. Denial. 11, we judge ourselves harshly and have a very low sense of self-esteem. 12, we are dependent personalities who are terrified of abandonment, will do anything to hold on to a relationship in order not to experience painful abandonment feelings, which we receive from living with sick people who were never there emotionally for us. 13, alcoholism is family disease, and we became para-alcoholic and took on that characteristic of that drink, even though we did not pick up the drink. 14, para-alcoholics are reactors rather than actors.
Good stuff. And now the promises.
All right, the promises. This is what we get. 1, we will discover our real identities by loving and accepting ourselves. 2, our self-esteem will increase as we give ourselves approval on a daily basis. 3, fear of authority figures and the need to people please will leave us. 4, our ability to share intimacy will grow inside us. 5, as we face our abandonment issues, we will be attracted by strengths and become more tolerant of weaknesses. 6, we enjoy feeling stable, peaceful, and financially secure. 7, we will learn how to play and have fun in our lives. 8, we will choose to love people who can love and be responsible for themselves. 9, healthy boundaries and limits will become easier for us to set. 10, fears of failure and success will leave us as we intuitively make healthier choices. 11, with help from our ACA support group, we will slowly release our dysfunctional behaviors. 12, gradually with our higher powers' help, we will learn to expect the best and get it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. We'll learn to expect the best and get it. I love ending with that. So Blake, what's going on, man?
I am, and it's funny you asked that question because I talked to Richard about that today, where when things are going great in my life, I immediately, my inner child starts looking for the next shoe to drop. Like, things are going too good, everything's too calm, and it really is that inner dialogue. And what do we do to assure that 6-year-old Blake and it's just one of those things when the next shoe drops, we'll deal with it then. But till then, enjoy. Yeah.
So, where do you think that comes from? Because that was one of the questions, that we talked about. And, this particular person that sent it in just says, they start to feel a little joy and a little bit of happiness in their life, and they just bombard themselves with shame, guilt. I'm no good. I'm going to go back out and drink. I'm going to lose my job. And it's almost like we get addicted to the suffering the pain and the, cage that we put ourselves in, because that's where we spend a lot of our childhood, right?
Well, and it's comfortable.
Yeah.
The
familiar.
Familiar, comfortable. At least for me, and I know, for you too, that we're addicted to excitement. And when things are going going well and peaceful and serene, it's like my nervous system is like, we need some more excitement. Like this isn't right, you know?
Yep.
And we've talked about with female companionship, and you said with Alex, you're at one point, I'm bored. Like, where's the shame? Where's the, you know, the bad feeling like, you know, you're a bad little boy and getting scolded. And, we just got to remind ourselves that, you know, we will learn to expect the best and get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are some of the things our listeners can do? And this call in, Christine, what are some of the things that, you know, they can do when they start bombarding themselves with, oh my God, you know, he's going to leave me. I'm going to lose my job. I just, you know, and they just get spun out in that shame spiral and that. I think the first thing, at least for me, is recognizing that it's happening and that it's going on, and that you are feeling these feelings, but they're not real. And I think that's just with any of the negative self-talk, you know, just recognizing when you're doing it is the first kind of, you know, it says the first step in, you know, fixing something is admitting that there's a problem, and just acknowledging, hey, this isn't real. This isn't true. And then, you know, try to get into a place of gratitude as quickly as possible. But I think the first thing you have to do is realize that what you're feeling or what your head's going isn't real. It's not real. And it has nothing to do with the current circumstances.
Exactly.
Like I was getting a little spun out today about a business thing and projecting fear, worst case scenario. Oh, fuck, this is going to cost me all this money. Shit, how am I going to do this? You know, and literally I'm projecting a year into the future and have no idea how it's going to turn out, you know?
Yeah.
No idea how it's going to turn out. And I look at a lot of my business situations that caused me stress in the past, and it's like some of them turned into like great opportunities and great, you know, businesses that I made a lot of money on. But at the time, I'm like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. I'm so screwed. I'm so fucked.
And if every business turned out the way that you thought it would turn out, you wouldn't have made any money.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, it's amazing how when everything's going great, that's the way it's supposed to happen. But when things start to like go a little, it's like that little kid gets sparked. It's like all of a sudden he gets pinched. Hey, wake up. We got some work to do here. We got some shame. We got some guilt. We got some worry. We got some anxiety.
Yeah.
You know, we got a job to do here. Come on, wake up, guy.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I was telling Christine when I responded to her question is, first just pause, you know, just breathe.
Yeah.
Just breathe. Maybe do a prayer, maybe do a meditation, maybe do a bit of a journaling, but just slow it down, because the kid wants to go fast and he's scared and he wants to just feel the feelings in a voracious way, because that causes more excitement and more anxiety.
Whether it's the kid or the teenager, because my teenager likes to go fast.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the teenager and the kid both like to go fast, but the adult, okay, what's the logical thing to do here? Let's slow it down. Mm. Let's not panic. What can we do about it today? Let's get an acceptance. Let's figure this out. And then let's get to a place where let's trust God and know that we did nothing wrong.
Yeah. That's
the key. We did nothing wrong, because I think where that shame comes from and that guilt and that like self-condemnation is like, I did something wrong. Mm-hmm. I'm a bad boy. I did something wrong. I fucked up.
And then
fucked up.
And then you go through your tape in your head of all the different things that you could have done over the last 2 years or whatever. And
it's just piling on the shame.
Piling on the shame.
It's like, and so like you got to, like you said, stop the tape. You got to realize it's going on. All right, hold on. We don't have all the facts yet. We don't know what's going to happen, and we're going to get through this. It's going to be okay. This too shall pass. Yeah. It's one of my favorite sayings.
Very favorite.
This too shall pass. No matter what's happening. If you're on top of the world and crushing it in business and making millions of dollars, this too shall pass. If you're like screwed and you're losing your money and you can't pay your bills, Next month, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
They both will pass. They're both temporary.
Yep.
So why take it personally? Like you said, let's just go with the flow of the river, go with the flow of the water.
Exactly.
And just let it take us. Oh, okay. This is interesting. No, this is going on. Okay. I didn't do anything wrong. This is not my fault. This is just life. This is the way it happens. A breakup, bad business deal. I'm not a bad husband. I'm not a bad business person. I'm just doing life. And, I'm coming from a place of love and acceptance, and it's going to be okay.
And as long as can look myself in the mirror and know that I did my best, because I'm a big believer that I've gotten out of the outcome business. And if I can trust the process and just do the best that I can, and whatever the results are, the results are. Cause I get hyper fixated on the results and right now, and it's so I can trigger that shame and then anxiety.
Yeah.
Right. Where I can be my own worst critic, and from the outsider's perspective, everything, Blake, you're doing great. You could tell me, Blake, you're doing great. You're doing awesome. But I'm going to figure out a way to move the goalposts where, I can get that
right.
dose of shame and anxiety.
Right. Your budget this month's $400,000 and you came in at 375. And first thing that your mind's telling you, see, I knew it. I knew you'd fuck up. I knew you wouldn't hit the number,
Yeah.
You're not good at this. What's wrong with you, Blake? And the inner dialogue starts, and it's amazing how it is truly, we wouldn't treat our worst enemy that way.
No.
Like I wouldn't treat a guy that I just disliked and tell him how bad he is and what a shitty business person he is and how he fucked up and he's going to get fired and he's going to be out of money. Like who does that? That's asinine,
So asinine.
And it's like we have to treat our little boy and our teenager like we would treat one of our friends that is literally in serious fucking emotional shit, and we're there just to love them.
Exactly.
So I had a good friend, Paul, who used to say, take yourself out of it. Just take yourself out of it. Okay. And put someone else in that shoes, put James or Frank or Bobby or anybody in the shoes of where you're at. What would you tell them?
Exactly. I think that is great advice for Christina. Like if you can take yourself out of it and almost look at it, because I do this sometimes where like I will try to get above it and out of it and look at the scenario from kind of a, God's perspective and put somebody else in it. I wouldn't treat anybody like even my worst mortal enemy, I wouldn't talk and say the things that I say to myself.
And it almost becomes neutral, and it doesn't become so personal when you do that. Sure. It's not as emotional.
I mean, we do that all the time when guys are complaining about their problems.
Right.
And then they're like, yeah, and?
Yeah.
That's my favorite. Yeah, and?
And, yeah, and, but, it's like telling these guys, yeah, I'm so glad you're going through this pain. But then when we say it to ourselves, we're like, oh, no, I don't like this pain. No, I don't like it. I want it to go away quickly.
Yeah.
Can I watch some porn, scroll through social media, take a nap, eat a bunch of terrible food? How can I get rid of this pain? And realize that the pain has nothing to do with the current circumstances, even though we think it is. It's triggered from childhood. Like our book says, all of these things are just getting triggered from childhood, from all the hurts, shame, and fears from the past are getting replayed.
Yeah.
So it's really about shit that happened when we were 5 and 6.
For sure. When our mom was scolding us because we were bad. And like,
those feelings come up.
Yeah. And that's something that I had happen over the weekend where I had someone and it was like if I took myself out of it, it's like a completely thing like, hey, you said this and it hurt my feelings. And I instantly got defensive and I got like, I was 6 years old again, like my mom was scolding me and she pointed it out and I was like, yeah, you're right. I am being defensive and I don't know where that is coming from.
Yeah. Well, it's just amazing how we can see it back from childhood, but when it's happening in a real life situation as an adult, the last thing I think of is like, oh, wait a minute. This isn't real. This is a rupture that happened when I was 5, 6, 7, 8 years old when my parents were yelling at me because I did something wrong in their eyes.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything wrong. No one's ever done anything wrong. They're just being human and living life. We're just living life and being human. Even if we do something that is like very hurtful and malicious, like we're still didn't do anything wrong. That's such a judgment.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you did something wrong. Why didn't you do this? What's wrong with you? You should have done that. Why you could have done that? Why didn't you do that? Like, I mean, those statements are basically telling us we're not good. We're defective, and we deserve the pain that we're getting. We rightly and righteously deserve that pain that we're giving ourselves.
Yeah.
And today I was thinking about it. I went to yoga and I was thinking about that childhood meditation of just sitting there with my 8-year-old self and having God's light just on him and just loving him, and just petting his hair, touching his shoulder and saying, you know what, buddy? It's all good. You're a fucking unbelievable person. You're a sweet boy. You're sensitive. You're loving. You're caring. And you just want to feel your feelings and know that it's going to be okay and know that you're going to be safe. Because we never felt safe, right? And that's why we get into that fight or flight, because you can't just like, oh, okay, business isn't going that well. All right, I'll figure it out. No big deal. Instead, we're like, it's like, like the breakup. Oh my God, I'm never going to meet anybody. It's such extremes,
And it's the chaos and the drama that we're really addicted to.
Right.
We can figure out 7 ways from Sunday how something isn't going to work or something bad's going on, and it's because of this or that or whatever. Like, and a lot of times it's just teaching us something.
Right.
And if we can view it from that viewpoint and I'm running a new business and endeavor that we're both involved in, and it's very interesting now that I have some of the tools from this, how much easier it is to deal with. Because in business and just like in life, nothing's going to go to plan always. Never. And
it's going to be better, worse, or, slightly altered. Right.
And we think that it's, this straight line and a lot of times it's up and down and got to go backwards to go forwards. And it's all part of the game. And it's, one of my favorite people said, it's just really a battle of your will versus time, and whether you're going to just keep playing the game or not.
Yep.
And I am just like in life, this thing that we share with the laundry list and it just makes life so much like I did drugs and alcohol because I couldn't live life on life's terms. And then I got sober and I didn't have the drugs and alcohol to make me feel better. And then this is like the cheat code to it all is, being able to take life on. And, we've gone through a lot of trying times, but it makes us a better person in the end.
Right. Yeah. And it allows us to be helpful and useful to other people too, because we can share our experience. So when you see somebody just completely losing their shit, leaking oil, there were a couple of people at that meeting we went to Tuesday night, and you could just feel their pain and their emotion. It's like, dude, I've been there. I was there.
I've been exactly where you said.
I was there. And you want to know how I got through it? And he's like, yeah, tell me. I'm like, I took life 1 hour at a time.
Yeah.
All I can do is get through this next hour. I have no idea how I'm going to get through tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. No fucking clue. And you know what? I probably won't be able to get through it, but I'm going to get through this next hour. And I'm going to say the serenity prayer. And I'm going to ask God to help me. Please, fucking God, help me. Help me. Remove this pain. Remove this fear. Remove this anxiety, God. Please let me feel your love, which is really my own love, my self-love.
Yeah.
Let me feel it. And just by going through those actions, it's a little bit lighter, and because the other option is you just go straight down that rabbit hole and that panic, and you're sweating and you have rapid heartbeat and you're just like, you can't sit still and you're freaking out and you can't be in the moment. You can't pay attention. You can't concentrate. You certainly can't like have a normal conversation with somebody. You know, it's like when you came to my house before you went to Cabo, like you don't even remember that day eating Mr. Pickles, you know, for lunch.
Yeah.
And I don't remember either. Like I vividly remember living in Perry's condo for 3 months, and it was all a blur because it wasn't real. Yeah. Like I wasn't there.
No,
I was not there. I was somewhere else. I was in fear land, you know,
yeah. Fear of, I'm never going to find anybody else.
She's going to leave me.
She's going to leave me. You know, she's going to take all my money.
I'm no good.
I'm a failure.
I'm not good looking. I'm not personable. No one's going to ever want to be with me again. I mean, desperation and laying on the shame and the guilt.
Yeah.
Where the adult would be like, no big deal. People get divorced, you know, people leave, find somebody else, you know, and I'm going to learn from this and be a better person from it.
And it all ended up working out.
Yeah. I met an amazing woman. My ex and I are best friends. I mean, who would have thought, you know, I met literally the girl that I always thought I would be with, you know, basically a female me.
For sure.
Just a lot younger. She picked me up from the doctor yesterday, and the girl at the front desk goes, "Oh, is this your daughter?" I'm like, "Yeah, it is." I just wanted to say it, you know. I go, "It's my daughter," you know. So I don't know if that was a compliment or like, you know.
I think it's a compliment.
I think it was great. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. Life still comes at you, you know, there's stuff coming up in my family that I, you know, still worry about, stuff in business like today, you know, talking about what we talked about and like, shit, how am I going to get out of this lease? And, you know, and the reality is I opened Zanzibar in 1993 and I ran it for a year and it failed and we were out of money. Like none of us had the money. We were done. And I'm like, fuck, we're screwed. And talk about panic. Back then I was drinking. So I would just drink myself till I blacked out. You know, today I don't have that option, but so freaking panicked. And out of that came the conception and born the idea of Raw. And we literally didn't have the money to convert the store. So we did the tile ourselves, the drywall ourselves. I mean, basically we spent $100,000 and most of it was labor. And
it was your sweat equity.
It was our sweat equity. And that store has made probably $15 million since we converted it in cash flow over the years. And I spent 3 months before we opened Raw, just in a full-fledged panic. I'm screwed. You know, I signed this lease, the investors, blah, 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 like, you know, and it worked out better than expected, way better than expected.
Yeah.
So we never know, like my friend Jim Wallen says, you never know. I can't see around corners.
No.
Can't see around corners. And that means I got to live in the moment. I got to live in gratitude and I got to have fucking grace for myself. Mm-hmm. I have grace for other people today.
Yeah.
I have grace for you. I have grace for my wife. I have grace for my parents.
Yeah.
The most important person I could have grace for is myself. Love myself. Mm-hmm. You're okay. You did nothing wrong. You did nothing wrong. You're not in trouble.
You didn't. And
you're not in trouble. You're not a bad boy.
And you take a step further and you know, when you go like, I deserve this, that's where I go down that line. And it's like,
I deserve this, which comes from, I'm not good enough and I'm faulty, you know, and, you know, we're certainly not born that way. Mm-hmm. You know, it's literally from ages 0 to, I'm going to call it 15, right? That's when that shit happens, that programming, you know, and maybe sometimes we just need a reboot and like get rid of all the software and viruses on the computer. Sure. Just get rid of all that shit. And then
I also, you know, take it, if we look at it too, for me and for you, playing an individual sport is really
there's no team.
There's no team. It's all me. And if something goes bad, it's, you know, it's all my fault.
I had hernias at 10, 11 years old. And
just the performance anxiety,
you know, I mean, literally feeling like I was going to faint going into playing a big tournament, like the finals or semifinals.
I remember getting on the first tee of tournaments and like borderline throwing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I just was like,
yeah, Well, I mean, we've talked about this, but I look at a lot of my friends that are no longer here that were some of the best tennis players in junior tennis. I mean, literally, these guys were lights out, like better than Agassi and Sampras back in the day. And they're no longer here, you know? And, you know, I think there's so much pressure we put on ourselves. And then comes the shame. And then comes the guilt, and we're not good enough. And when they realize they're not going to make it in tennis, that shame gets piled on. Yeah. See, I knew you couldn't make it in tennis. Yeah. You didn't go to college now. You know, what are you going to do? Like, you're screwed.
It becomes your identity.
And a lot of guys either start drinking, they take their life, they OD because they can't deal with that pain and that shame. I got a good buddy here in town we talked about who was number one in the country in the 16s, in the boys 16s, number one, like doesn't get any higher than one. And I feel bad for him now. You know, he didn't make it. He didn't make it in tennis. And, you know, I feel bad because our worth is not tied up in who our parents thought we should be.
Exactly.
You know, and for so long, I wanted my mom's approval that I was a good boy, cleaned my room, got good grades, I'm a good son. And my dad's approval, like, you're the tennis star. Yeah. You know, and if I could just play those roles, I feel safe. But boy, playing those roles, it was constant anxiety. Constant anxiety, you know, your room's a fucking mess. What the fuck is wrong with you? And throwing something, right? Or why didn't you ask so-and-so to play doubles? He has a partner now. What's wrong with you? I told you to call him 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Well, Dad, I'm 11 and
he's 15.
I forgot to call him. I'm sorry. You know, like, I mean, I couldn't stand up for myself. So I would just either cry or say, I'm sorry. Yeah. But now I can look at it and talk as an adult. Dad, it's no big deal. You know, I guess I wasn't supposed to play with him if he already got a partner. And I guess I found another partner that I'm supposed to play with. So get over it. Yeah. You know, that's the adult.
11-year-old Blake and Todd
say that.
Could never say that.
No. He's taken the fall.
Because 25-year-old Blake had a hard time saying that too. Yeah. You know,
you're right.
Where now we can have that perspective of, oh, well, that's what's supposed to happen, I guess.
That's what happened, you know? And I remember I was, this is a funny story. I was supposed to play in the boys 10s with this one player, and he found another doubles partner in the boys 10s. So I got Kent Kiefer. And that name might ring a bell, but he was my doubles partner. His dad was the head coach at McClintock for 35 years, Carl Kiefer, like total stud. Kent and I went on to win the boys 10s championship, and we're number one in the boys 10s. And this kid came out of nowhere. I wasn't like the greatest doubles player, and it was like we won the whole thing. But yet my dad wanted me to play with Tommy Judd, you know, because he's a better player. And we turned out we won the whole thing. I mean, just goes to show you, what do we know what's best for us?
We don't.
You know? And it's like, I got shamed and I felt shame. I got shame. Nobody can force me to have shame as an adult. But as a kid,
for sure,
you know, I think that shame is given by people of authority. It doesn't have to be parents. And it's, you know, it can be siblings, and teachers.
And a lot of the coaches, that's what they do.
And coaches.
And that's exactly how they get a kid to do what they need them to do, is shame.
You just reminded me of, I was at Paradise Valley Tennis Club when I was 10 or 11 years old, and I was daydreaming and kind of just spacing out, like looking. This tennis pro, Mike Van Zuffelen, if you're listening, Mike, you owe me an amends, took the ball and hit it at me as hard as he could. Yeah. You want to talk about trauma? Yeah. That's like someone taking a golf ball and just hitting it right as hard as he could. Yeah. With a three wood, you know, from 4 feet. And I'm like,
startled.
I mean, you know, so you talk about all this shit and it's like, obviously we know where it comes from. Obviously we know how to look at it as an adult, but it's like, we got to start having better self-talk, better actions. Yeah. You know,
for sure. And the other thing that when you take yourself out of it and how hard we are on 8 or 10-year-old Blake is like, I get around, Eli and Dash. And I'm like, I would never say anything like that to these boys. Right. But why am I saying it to myself?
Right.
And it's like,
you would never give,
I would never say the things that I say in my head to, you know, Eli or Dash or any of, you know, any 6-year-old kid. But why am I doing it to myself?
Right.
You know, if you take yourself out of it, we don't need to do those things.
Yep. Yep. So anything else for Christine who called in?
I think
really beating herself up. And
I think the only other thing I would say to Christine is, if you can get around, some like-minded people and, because ultimately the reason that I've gotten to the place I am is because I've had other people show me the way, and I've had people, look me in the eyes and be like, you're going to be fine.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Because if you're complaining about yourself and judging yourself constantly, people around you are either going to start judging and complaining about themselves, oh, you think you have it bad. Well, listen to me, listen what I got, or you could be around people who are like, well, maybe there's a silver lining in there. Maybe that's, maybe the universe is trying to show you something else, or, a positive response and a positive behavior and a positive emotion instead of piling on to the shame and self-pity. I was just over here. I was talking to Liam Ham, and I called him on the way over here. And I go, Liam, someone told me something this morning and it reminded me of your dad. He goes, what's that? He goes, I was feeling so sorry for myself that my mom told me, his name was John, get off the cross. We need the wood, please. We need the wood, get off the cross. He was just such a martyr, and Ron used to always say that to me. I would complain about losing money and shutting down a business, and I'm talking to him from my multi-million-dollar house, and he's like, Todd, really, Todd?
I can picture it
really
right now.
Really, Todd?
Oh my God.
And it just put it into perspective. How selfish, self-centered could I be? Here's a guy who doesn't have that much, material possessions at the time. And I'm sitting there complaining that I'm going to lose, whatever it was, a few $100,000 on a business deal because I wasn't allowed to make a mistake. I wasn't allowed to fail. I wasn't allowed to do something wrong. That's where it all comes from.
Yeah.
So,
and then the other piece of it is some of the best people in business, they fail, but they fail quick. And, when you're in that constant shame place, you're missing the lesson.
Totally.
You're missing what, cause with fail, you have to fail and you have to learn in order to get to, you had to have Zanzibar go down, and you had to then pivot and fix tile and drywall, because then the next time when you did open another restaurant, maybe that the lesson was you had to do that. So then you could know when you're opening this other one's I already did this. I did the tile, I did the drywall. I know exactly what it takes.
Yep.
And it makes it for exactly what the great outcome that it ended up being.
Totally. Yeah.
And then you also, when we look at, I think that the relationship with myself and my self-confidence, because, to Christina's point, when you start giving yourself that approval, your self-confidence ends up skyrocketing because you're not beating your own self over the head, giving yourself the approval, giving yourself the affirmations. And eventually you train yourself that's what your body craves instead of the shame and the guilt.
Right.
I crave the approval. And it's so great not to rely on other people's approval that it comes from myself. And then I end up being happier because I'm the one giving myself approval. And then you get, when you're giving yourself the approval, it gives everyone else around you the ability to give you approval.
Well, the thing is,
and then that whole thing spirals in the good direction, just like it would in the bad.
Well, if we're relying on other people to give us approval, that becomes an addiction and becomes
we're making them our master.
Because if we get it, we're like, oh, the guy, he thinks I'm smart. He thinks I'm rich. He thinks I'm good looking, whatever it is. But guess what? You need more of it. It's like literally cocaine.
It's like,
And so drug. When I stop trying to get approval from other people, or even I'll go further and say, coming into grace and freedom and acceptance with getting criticism.
Oh, for sure.
Getting criticism and not going into the shame. That's the test. Can I get criticism from, a constructive criticism from a loving person?
Yeah, of course.
And not spiral into shame.
Oh, for sure. But I think you have to be able to be the one giving yourself approval, right. Or that taking criticism is impossible, because it's like imagine the person that you're trying to do the approval seeking behavior. They're not giving you the approval, and then they give you criticism, and then it really is a right hand to the head, where now it's, if you're giving me criticism, or anybody in my life's giving me criticism, I can have an open heart and really look, because they care. Mm-hmm. Where before it would just be like, oh my God, I knew it. Right. I'm not good enough. I'm not this. I fucked up. I did that. And it's like, at the end of the day, they don't really. And one of my favorite things too, Christina, that I would tell Christina is, and Ross, my buddy Ross, something, he's like, Blake, they are not giving you the mind share, and they're not thinking about you as much as you think they are. They don't care. Right.
That's the advice I used to get when I first got sober, and I was so worried about everyone talking about me. And my AA buddies would be like, Todd, they don't give a fuck. Yeah. They really aren't talking about you. You're not that important.
You're not, illusions of grandeur.
You think they're talking about you, and it's making you sweat and making you total anxious. They don't care. You're okay.
And it's just when you're newly sober and you're going somewhere for the first time and you're not drinking, and you think that everyone around you is noticing that you're not drinking, and really nobody cares. Yeah. Nobody notices. And now I go to places all the time and I'm not drinking. People people don't even notice. And when they do tell me, I'm like, yeah, I don't drink.
Yeah. If we're using the material world as our goalpost for approval, validation, and, self-worth, we're in for a really shallow life, Yeah. But when we start using being in the moment and helping people, and the principles, loving ourselves, being honest, doing nice things for people and not telling anyone. When we start doing all these things, we kind of get a life worth living.
For sure.
Just playing with the dogs, right? Playing my musical instruments, watching a comedy and laughing my ass off, taking a nap, on the weekends,
or even during the week.
Or during the week.
Sometimes a nap is the best thing that, no for me, sometimes naps are the greatest therapy.
Sometimes I got to shut it down.
5:30, 6 o'clock. I've had a long day and I still got work to do, and I take a 30-minute nap, and it's
it's you feel refreshed. And guess what? My mom, if I slept in when I was a kid, get up. What are you doing? Get up. And when I started dating Julie and then Alex too, it's they're like, no, we want to sleep till 11 on the weekends. I'm like, what? You're going to get in trouble.
My mom's going to come over here and you're going to be
get
busted.
In trouble.
Yeah.
It's amazing how deep it runs.
It does. And
we can recognize it now and kind of laugh at it.
For sure.
And just have fun with it. Cause, I used to hate hearing this saying, but I think we're supposed to be happy, joyous, and free.
For sure.
Freedom from the self-sabotage that we do, and happy, enjoy things we like doing, and free of the mind mostly.
And the freedom for me is that I have really gotten into acceptance in all things. And that's how you get free, is that I'm not in control of this. I'm not trying to, not trying to control business relationships, not trying to control businesses. I'm going to do what I think I need to do to the best of my ability, and whatever happens, happens, and if I tell someone what I think and I stand up for myself and they're not my friend anymore, then good.
Right.
And if somebody wants to say something about a certain choice that some people are making, and I tell them my opinion and they lump me into that crowd, then good. Because at least I'm being authentic. Mm-hmm. And if you don't like it and you want to gossip behind people's backs and do all those things, and I now am in a place where before I would just be like, oh yeah, I think I know what you're saying. I think you're right. It's really messed up there. And now it's nah, I don't agree with you, and I don't need to argue with you about it. But to thine own self be true, right? And and that's the real freedom. And there's a lot of power that comes from that.
Yep. I agree. Free. See, I mean, I just saw that word on the screen, free, just free, freedom,
Freedom.
Freedom. And it just even saying it like makes you feel good, like freedom, free the mind, free that little boy, free that teenager that's so angry.
As Bob Marley says in a song, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None one of ourselves can rule our mind, meaning the mind is the most powerful thing that we got, and it can be really good for us and it can be really bad. But that mental slavery that we put ourselves under is...
Well, that reminds me of another quote Mark Twain said. It's like some of the worst things that ever happened to me never happened.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I'm a specialty of that is I'll play like you, I'll play through all the worst case scenarios and none of them ever come true.
When I used to do that all the time, when I would sleep with a girl one night stand and I didn't use protection, the next day I was convinced I had. This is back. I grew up in the AIDS era.
Yeah.
So like in 80s and 90s, like we were freaking out about AIDS. So every single time I'm like, I 100% have AIDS. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. I got to tell my parents, like, I'm going to die. Like, I mean, literally. And that's just an example of how far I would take it, and business, relationships, health, like just relax, take it easy, breathe, free the mind.
And you can, and
let
then
the spirit roam. And
when you're in a place like that, you can make better decisions personally, professionally. And that's what it's all about, right?
The human experience is meant to feel all the emotions, and they're not all happy, joyous, and free, and a lot of the emotions are painful, but that's part of being human. Even the greatest mystics, right? Jesus, Buddha, I mean, Muhammad, you read all their stories, there was a lot of suffering.
A lot.
And that's pretty much what made them so special and so mystical, is because they figured out how to deal with their suffering and their pain and turn it into an asset that was able to help other people.
And I'm coming to realize, because I can feel my feelings for the first time, when I'm starting to be fearful and be afraid for whatever reason, it usually means I'm going down the right path, where I used to try to avoid fear and avoid this. But when I'm feeling fearful, it's usually a good thing, and it's like walking through that fear and walking through
I think the human ego and the human mind is designed to have that fight or flight to protect us, right? Don't run in the middle of the street. Don't jump off that cliff, right? It's that fight or flight, like survival instincts. But then we take it too far and we're like, oh, this is happening. And this happened when I was 6 and I kind of feel similar. So I better absolutely freak the fuck out. Right.
Where any time you probably made any money in your life, like there's a lot of fear involved, and it's doing things. You
got to keep walking.
You got to do the opposite.
You got to keep.
What do you know to be true that the rest of the world believes to be false?
Got to keep walking. Got to keep moving,
and just
don't stand still.
And the last thing to Christina is that you'll learn to expect the best and get it from yourself, from anybody.
Play in life and have fun, and just be silly.
And that was one thing I noticed when we were on Tuesday, is like how much I remember first A meetings that like. I'm like, we talk about it, you too. My life's over. This is going to be no fun. And I laughed and it was just so fun, and no one's taking themselves serious, and it's a joke, and it's, say 10, and it's all fun.
All right, guys. Well, we enjoyed this episode. Hopefully you did too. Please keep writing your questions in the comment section. Please rate us and give us feedback. We love the feedback. We're on our 64th episode, I believe. And, we're just having more fun today than we had when we started this. So thank you for listening to the Laundry List, and we will see you next week.